Okay, so I have the letters and the emblem cut out that I'm going to be using as a guide for my beadwork. So I'm just going to lay them on my fusible web. And of course I took them and put them against my book to make sure that everything fit. Anyway, so I'm going to take the cutouts that I have now, put them against my fusible web, and just basically outline. Just go around it, and then I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to do the same thing for the letters. And just place them all on the fusible web and trace around them, and then cut the fusible webbing out. So I've taken my piece of fabric, and as I showed you earlier, I turned it under twice, and then I just ran a seam all the way around the fabric. And now what I'm doing is finding my placement for the objects that I'm going to be beading. So I've cut my pattern out, as well as a piece of the fusible interfacing to go underneath it. So I'm just finding my placement. I've got my book inside so that I know I'll be putting this in the right location. So I've just kind of laid it out here just to see where everything is going to fit. You know, all my letters. And I'm just going to show you on the big one. But anyway, I just lay everything out and figure out where it's going to be. And then what I'm going to do is just take a pin and to hold it in place while I get the interfacing in place. And I'm going to pause while I put that pin in. Okay, now that I've got everything pinned exactly into place where I want it, I'm going to take my book out because I no longer need it as a reference. And now what I'm going to do is take my interfacing and let's see, I've got to figure out, okay, that's the way that piece goes. So I'm simply going to put it behind the fabric and line it up, line it up with where I have the top portion pinned. And I'm going to do that with each of the other pieces I cut out for the letters and then for my initials. And I'm going to place them behind the fabric with the shiny side facing the fabric, and just put them underneath to their corresponding letters. And then what I'm going to do is just start to iron, like just on the bottom right here, just to adhere the fusing on each piece. I'm just going to, like on this one, just take the little bit of the corner of the iron and iron on this side of the fabric on top of the paper. And then once I've got all of the fusing secure in at least one spot, then I can remove my pins and remove my pattern from the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and iron that fusing on, and I'll be back and show you what it looks like finished. Okay, I had to change course a little bit here because I was having a difficult time getting the interfacing placed from the other side of the fabric. So I just turned it over, and I know you can't see on camera, but I can see through the fabric where my paper is pinned down. So I'm just placing the interfacing on top of those spots, of course with the shiny side facing the fabric. And so I'm just placing them behind where I have the pieces of paper pinned on the other side. And I'm going to do the same thing that I talked about, just start to get the interfacing adhered in one spot, and then turn it over and remove my pins and paper, and then continue to press until all of the fusible interfacing is adhered to the fabric. So once I get that done, I'll show you what it looks like finished. Okay, I've got the interfacing partially fused. You can see I didn't iron it all the way down completely on all the pieces. Where the pins were, I didn't completely iron it down. So that what I can do now is remove my pins, because we don't want them getting glued to the fabric. So I can remove all the pins and the pieces of paper, which I'm going to end up having to pin the letters back on for the next process, but to finish the fusible web, or the fusible interfacing, I'm going to have them removed. And I forgot to show you that I have my iron on a wool setting because that's what the interfacing called for. So now what I can do is go ahead and finish pressing my interfacing on. Just moving the iron around over all the pieces until they adhere completely. Okay, so the next step to be able to get the pattern onto the fabric is to use a piece of graphite paper, and you can see on one side it's just like light tissue paper, and on the other side is the graphite, which is going to transfer the pattern. So I'm just going to take my shapes and I'm just going to outline them like I did with the interfacing so that I can cut them to size. Oops. And I'm going to do the same with my letters. Don't have to be real exact or perfect here. Just need enough of the paper to transfer the pattern. So anyway, I'm going to continue doing that, and when I come back I'm going to show you how to transfer the pattern to the fabric. Now what I'm going to do is take my piece of graphite paper and match it up with my pattern, and then I'm going to find my interfacing that's on the other side and match the graphite paper to that. Then match the pattern to that, and I'm going to tape it down to hold it in place while I trace. And I decided to use tape instead of pinning because I was afraid that in the pinning process it would pull the design and maybe make it wavy. So this would help it lay flat while I work on it. And I'm going to do the same process with the letters. I'm going to tape those down, but just to show you how to do the tracing. Now that I've got everything in place, and because this is such a large design with so many straight edges, I'm going to use my ruler to help me trace, and I'm just going to go around the outline of the design, pressing somewhat hard. Until I get everything traced in that I want traced in. I'm not going to trace everything, every detail in this design. But I'm going to get my outlines of everything traced in. So once I'm done with that, we're going to get started beading. Finally!